The man sat there on that old wooden bench, and he could not hold it in anymore. His hands were shaking as he covered his face, and the tears just came pouring out like a dam that had finally broken after holding back water for far too long. He was 42 years old, and he ran one of the biggest tech companies in the country. But right now, none of that seemed to matter at all. The park around him was quiet in that strange way that only happens on weekday afternoons when most people are still at work, and the school kids have not quite made it here yet. He had chosen this spot specifically because nobody would recognize him. Here, nobody from his world. Anyway, the CEO of a major corporation was not supposed to break down like this, but he had reached a point where he simply could not pretend anymore. His expensive suit was wrinkled, and his tie hung loose around his neck like he had tried to loosen it multiple times throughout the day. The jacket, that probably cost more than most people made in a month, lay crumpled beside him on the bench, like it was just another piece of trash 3 months ago. His wife had left him and taken their daughter with her. He could not even blame her, really. He had missed so many birthdays and school plays and family dinners that he had lost count years ago. Always another meeting or another deal or another crisis that needed his immediate attention. His company had become his entire life, and now that company was falling apart too. Just this morning, the board had given him 30 days to turn things around, or they would vote him out. 30 days to fix problems that had been building for years. The irony was not lost on him. He had spent the last decade building this company into something massive, and now he was watching it crumble right before his eyes. The worst part was not even the business failure, though. Worst part was that this morning his daughter had called him to talk, and he had sent it to voicemail. She had turned 8 years old 3 days ago, and he had completely forgotten. He had been in back-to-back meetings trying to convince investors not to pull their funding, and he had forgotten his own daughter's birthday. By the time he remembered and called back, she would not answer. His ex-wife had sent him a text message that was only 3 words long, but those 3 words had cut deeper than any business failure ever could. She is done trying. That was it. His little girl had finally given up on him, the same way everyone else in his life had given up on him one by one over the years. He had always told himself that he was doing this for them, building the company and working the long hours and missing the family time. He had convinced himself that providing financial security was the same thing as being there. But sitting here on this bench with tears running down his face, he could see how wrong he had been. Money did not matter. The success did not matter. None of it mattered if he had lost the people he loved. Along the way, his phone kept buzzing in his pocket. Probably his assistant wondering where he had disappeared to in the middle of the workday. He had just walked out of the office without telling anyone, got in his car, and drove until he found this park, and now here he was 42 years old and crying on a park bench like his whole world had ended. Because maybe it had. The company he had built from nothing was about to be taken away from him. His marriage was over. His relationship with his daughter was destroyed. Everything he had worked for had turned to dust. He thought about all those years of 80-hour work weeks, all those nights he had slept in his office, all those times he had chosen a conference call over a family dinner. What had it all been for? He had told himself he was building something important, creating jobs and innovating and changing the world. But had he really changed anything for the better, or had he just been feeding his own ego, chasing success and recognition and the feeling of being important? The trees above him swayed gently in the afternoon breeze, and somewhere nearby, he could hear birds singing. It was such a normal, peaceful sound, and it felt completely wrong. How could the world just keep going when everything in his life was falling apart? He wiped his face with his sleeve, not even caring that he was probably ruining his expensive shirt. What did it matter anyway? In 30 days, he might not even have a job, might not be able to afford expensive shirts anymore. The Vegas anymore, they thought should have terrified him, but instead he felt almost nothing, just a deep, exhausting emptiness. He had spent so long being the strong one, leader who always had the answers, the CEO who never showed weakness, and now he was just tired of pretending, tired of fighting, tired of carrying the weight of everyone's expectations. His pretendings. Father had died when he was young, and he had promised himself he would be different. He would be successful, would provide for his family. He would never let them struggle the way his mother had struggled. But somewhere along the way, providing for his family had turned into abandoning his family, had become so obsessed with financial security that he had forgotten about emotional security, about being present, about actually being a father and a husband instead of just a paycheck. The park bench was hard and uncomfortable, but he did not move. He just sat there, letting the tears fall, letting himself feel everything he had been pushing down for months. Failure, the shame, the overwhelming sense that he had wasted years of his life chasing the wrong things. 20 years ago, when he had first started his company, it had been different. He had been so full of hope and genuine passion. He wanted to create technology that brought people together, that helped families stay connected across long distances. His own family had been scattered across different states after his father died, and he remembered how hard it had been to stay close to his cousins and aunts and uncles. He had wanted to fix that too, build something that made those connections easier, but somewhere between the startup phase and becoming a major corporation, that original mission had gotten lost. It had become about growth and profits and market share, about beating the competition and impressing investors. The human element had disappeared, and maybe that was why everything was falling apart now, because he had lost sight of what really mattered. He had sacrificed his own family connections in pursuit of helping other families connect. The irony was almost funny. Almost his daughter's face kept appearing in his mind. Dihan sinned. Way she used to look at him when she was little, like he was her hero, like he could do anything. When had that changed? When had she stopped looking at him that way? He could not pinpoint an exact moment. It had been gradual. One missed recital after another. One forgotten promise after another one. More time choosing work over her, until finally she stopped asking him to show up because she knew he would not, and now she was done trying. 8 years old and already learning that the people who are supposed to love you will let you down. What kind of lesson was that for a father to teach his daughter? The sun was starting to move lower in the sky. He had been sitting here for over an hour just crying and thinking. His phone had finally stopped buzzing. Maybe his assistant had given up on him. Too, maybe everyone had part of him wanted to just stay here on this bench forever. Never go back to the office. Never face the board or the investors or the employees who were all depending on him. Just disappear. But he knew he could not do that. As much as he wanted to run away, he still had responsibilities, still had people counting on him, even if he felt completely incapable of helping anyone right now. He took a deep, shaky breath and tried to pull himself together, tried to put the mask back on, the CEO mask that showed confidence and control. But his hands were still shaking, and his eyes were still wet, and he knew he looked like a complete mess. Anyone who saw him right now would never believe he was the head of a major company. He looked more like someone who had just lost everything, which he supposed he had the breeze picked up a bit, and he shivered even though it was not really cold. His shirt was damp from tears and sweat, and he probably smelled terrible after sitting here for so long. None of it seemed to matter, though. What did appearances matter when your whole life was collapsing? What did looking professional matter when you had failed at everything that truly counted? He closed his eyes and tried to think of a way forward, some solution to all of this, but his mind was blank, exhausted, empty. He had spent his entire adult life solving problems and making decisions and leading people, and now when he needed those skills most, he had nothing left to give. Park remained quiet around him, peaceful and indifferent to his suffering, and he sat there alone with his tears and his failures, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. Heard the voice before he saw her, small and clear, cutting through his thoughts like a bell. "Mister, why are you crying?" Looked up quickly, wiping at his face with both hands, trying To compose himself, standing a few feet away was a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. She had dark hair pulled back in pigtails that were a bit crooked, like she had done them herself that morning. Backpack looked too big for her small frame, and had several patches sewn onto it. Her jeans had holes in the knees, but not the fashionable kind. The kind that came from actually falling down and wearing the same clothes over and over her. Shoes were old sneakers that had been white once but were now more of a dingy gray, but her eyes were bright and curious as she looked at him, no fear or judgment in them, just genuine concern and curiosity. Cleared his throat and tried to make his voice sound normal. "I am fine, sweetheart. You should not be talking to strangers. Where are your parents?" The little girl tilted her head, studying him like he was an interesting puzzle. She was trying to figure out. "My mama is at work. She works at night cleaning the big office buildings downtown. I come here after school and wait for her. She gets done with her day job around 5, and then we go home for dinner before she goes to her night job." The girl said this matter-of-factly, like it was the most normal thing in the world, like every kid spent their afternoons alone in the park, waiting for their parent to finish working. Multiple jobs, something about that made his chest tighten. Here he was feeling sorry for himself while this little girl was dealing with circumstances that were probably much harder than anything he was facing. "But you still did not answer my question." The girl continued, walking a bit closer. "Why were you crying? Grown-ups do not usually cry in parks, at least not the grown-ups I see." He did not know what to say to that. Part of him wanted to tell her to go away, to leave him alone with his misery, but there was something about her direct, honest way of speaking that made it hard to dismiss her. Maybe part of him was just so tired of being alone. "I made some mistakes, big ones, and now I am dealing with the consequences. That is all." The little girl nodded like she understood completely. Then to his surprise, she walked over and sat down on the bench right next to him. Her legs dangled off the edge, not quite reaching the ground, and she swung them back and forth. "Everyone makes mistakes. My teacher says that mistakes are just proof that you are trying." "Are you trying, mister?" He almost laughed at that. Was he trying? He had been trying for 20 years, trying to build something, trying to be successful, trying to prove himself, and look where it had gotten him. "I thought I was trying, but maybe I was trying at the wrong things. I was so focused on my work that I forgot about the people who mattered. And now those people do not want anything to do with me anymore." The girl was quiet for a moment, swinging her legs and looking out at the park. There were a few pigeons pecking at the ground nearby, and she watched them with interest. "My papa died last year." She said it so casually that it took him a moment to process what she had said. When he did, he felt a wave of sympathy wash over him. "I am so sorry. That must have been very hard for you." She nodded, still watching the pigeons. "It was hardy. Cried a lot. Mama cried too, even though she tried to hide it from me. But you know what Papa told me before he died? He said something that I think about all the time now." She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small notebook. It was worn and dog-eared, like it had been carried around and looked at many times. The cover had stickers on it, butterflies, and stars and cartoon characters. She opened it carefully to a page near the front. Her handwriting was large and a bit shaky, like a child still learning to write neatly. He said that being successful is not about never falling down. It is about getting back up and remembering why you started walking in the first place. She looked up at him with those serious eyes. "I wrote it down so I would not forget. Sometimes when things are hard, I read it and it helps me remember that it is okay to fall. Everyone falls. What matters is if you get back up." Stared at the notebook, feeling something shift inside his chest. Out of the mouths of babes. That was the phrase rights. Sometimes children said things that held more wisdom than anything adults could come up with. "Do you remember why you started?" The girl asked, like, why did you start doing whatever it is you do? Why did you start walking in the first place? That question hit him harder than he expected. Why had he started? It seemed like a lifetime ago. He had been fresh out of college, young and idealistic and full of ideas about changing the world. His father had died when he was just a kid, 9 years old, and he remembered how hard it had been for his family to stay connected after that. His mother had moved them to be closer to her job. His father's siblings were scattered across different states. Video calls were not really a thing. Back then, long-distance phone calls were expensive. They had slowly drifted apart, lost touch by the time he was in college. He barely knew his father's side of the family at all, and that had bothered him, made him sad, made him wish there had been better ways to stay connected. So, when he started his company, that had been the goal: create technology that kept families together, even when they were far apart, make it easy and affordable for people to see each other and talk to each other no matter where they lived. That had been the dream, the mission, but somewhere along the way he had lost sight of that. The company had grown, and the investors had gotten involved, and it had become about profits and market share, about being bigger and better than the competition. The original mission had gotten buried under spreadsheets and quarterly reports. I started because I wanted to help families stay together. He said quietly, my father died when I was young, and we lost touch with so much of his family because it was too hard to stay connected back then. I wanted to fix that. I wanted to create something that would help families like mine. The little girl smiled, and it was such a genuine, happy smile that it made his throat tight. That is a really good reason, did you help families? Has your company helped people stay together? He thought about that. Despite everything that had gone wrong, despite losing sight of the mission, despite all his personal failures, had the company actually helped people? And he realized that yes, it had. Millions of people use their platform to video call with relatives overseas, share photos with grandparents who lived far away too, stay connected with children who had moved across the country for college or work. The technology he had helped create was being used every single day to keep families together. Maybe you did not fail as much as you think you did. Girl said, like she could read his thoughts. Maybe you just forgot for a little while, but you can remember again. My teacher also says it is never too late to start over. As long as you are still breathing, you can try again. She said this with such confidence, such absolute certainty, like it was the simplest truth in the world. He wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that it was not too late, that he could fix things somehow. But how? How could he fix a company that was failing, a marriage that was over, a relationship with his daughter that was broken? My mama uses one of those video call things to talk to my grandmother. Girl continued, my grandma lives in the Philippines, and we live here, and it is really far, but every week we get to see her face and talk to her and show her my schoolwork. Mama says it makes her feel less homesick. Maybe your company made that possible. Maybe you already helped my family, even if you forgot. You were trying to help families that hit him like a physical blow. This little girl, this child whose mother worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, was using his technology, his company's platform, to stay connected with her family across the ocean. He had been so busy thinking about everything he had lost that he had forgotten about all the people who were still being helped by what he had built. You know what else Papa said? The girl asked, turning the page in her notebook. He said, the strongest people are not the ones who never fall. They are the ones who get back up when everyone thinks they cannot, when everyone has given up on them. That is when you find out what you are really made of. She closed her notebook and put it back in her backpack, zipping it up carefully like it was precious cargo. I have to go now, Mama will be here soon to pick me up, and we have to go home so she can make dinner before her night shift. But mister, she looked at him very seriously, I think you should try again. You had a good reason for starting. Helping families is important. My family would be really sad if we could not talk to Grandma any more, so maybe do not give up yet. Okay. She stood up and adjusted her too big backpack on her small shoulders. The afternoon sun was lower now, casting long shadows across the park. He could see a woman walking toward them from the parking lot, wearing a uniform that looked like it might be for a cleaning service, looking, but smiling when she saw the little girl. Before the girl walked away, he found his voice. Thank you for talking to me. I needed to hear that she grinned at him. That is okay. Sometimes we all need someone to remind us of stuff we forgot. Bye, Mr. I. Hope you remember why you started walking. She skipped off toward her mother, who wrapped an arm around her shoulders. The fee coach boy could start. Walking. She skipped off toward her mother, who wrapped an arm around her shoulders. The woman glanced back at him with a polite nod, probably wondering who her daughter had been talking to, but not seeming worried, just trusting. He watched them walk away together, the little girl chattering about something he could not hear, the mother listening with a tired but genuine smile, and he sat there feeling like something fundamental had shifted inside him. This child, this little girl he did not even know, had somehow managed to say exactly what he needed to hear. She had reminded him of who he was before all the success and failure, before the pressure and the stress, before he forgot what really mattered. He pulled out his phone. It had stopped buzzing a while ago. There were dozens of missed calls and messages, but he ignored all of them. Instead, he scrolled through his contacts until he found the name. He was looking for his daughter, his little girl who was done trying. He hesitated for just a moment. Then he pressed call. It rang once, twice, 3 times. He thought it would go to voicemail again, but then she answered, her voice small and hesitant. Hello, and for the first time in months, he knew exactly what to say. Hey, sweetheart. His voice cracked a little, and he had to clear his throat. I am so sorry I missed your birthday. I'm sorry for a lot of things. Actually, there was silence on the other end. He could hear her breathing. Could imagine her standing there, holding the phone, wondering if she should just hang up. Why are you calling now? She asked finally. Her voice had that careful tone that kids get when they are trying not to show how much something hurts, when they are protecting themselves. Mama said you were too busy, that you always are. The words cut deep, but he deserved them. Every single one of them. I was too busy, you were right, but I should not have been. Nothing should have been more important than calling you on your birthday. Nothing should have been more important than being there for you. He took a breath, trying to find the right words. I met someone today, a little girl about your age, and she asked me a question that made me realize how badly I have messed everything up. What question? His daughter sounded curious now, despite herself. She asked me if I remembered why I started my company, why I began doing all of this in the first place. And I realized that I had forgotten. I forgot the whole reason I built this company. He stood up from the bench and started walking slowly through the park. The movement helped him think, helped him find the words he needed to say. When I was your age, my daddy died. You know that story. After he died, we lost touch with so many people in his family, my aunts and uncles and cousins. We just drifted apart because it was too hard to stay connected back then, and I hated that. I hated losing all those people. So when I grew up, I wanted to fix that problem. I wanted to make it so families could stay together even when they were far apart. That was the whole point, to help families. He paused near a tree, watching as the evening birds started their songs. But somewhere along the way, I got so focused on building the company that I forgot about my own family. I forgot about you. And that is the most terrible mistake I could have made, because you are the most important person in my whole world. Are you dying or something? His daughter asked, suddenly her voice tight with worry. Is that why you are saying all this? No, sweetheart, I am not dying. He said quickly, I am just finally waking up, finally seeing clearly. I have been walking around like a zombie for years, going through the motions, thinking that working hard and making money was the same thing as being a good father. But it is not. Being there is what matters. Showing up is what matters. And I have not been doing that. Why not? Such a simple question, such a hard answer. Because I was scared. He admitted it. It was easier to throw myself into work than to face how badly I was failing at being a dad. Every time I missed something or forgot something or let you down, I felt terrible. But instead of fixing it, I just worked more. Like if I could just be successful enough at my job. Then somehow that would make up for failing at being your father. But it does not work that way, does it, no? She said quietly. It does notty. Would rather have a dad who shows up than a dad who is successful. He had to stop walking because his vision was blurring with tears again. Now I know that now, and I am so sorry it took me this long to figure it out. There was a long pause. He could hear movement on her end. Maybe she was in her room. Maybe she was sitting on her bed holding that stuffed elephant he had bought her 3 years ago, the last birthday present he had actually remembered to give her in person. The little girl I met today, her dad died last year, and before he died, he told her something. He said that being successful is not about never falling down. It is about getting back up and remembering why you started in the first place. She wrote it down in a notebook so she would not forget, and when she showed it to me, I realized that I had fallen down hard, but I want to get back up. And I want to remember why I started, not just with my company, but with being your dad. What was that supposed to mean? His daughter asked. She sounded less guarded now, more like the curious kid she used to be. Before he had disappointed her so many times, I started being your dad because I loved you more than anything in the world. From the moment you were born, you were the most important thing in my life. And somewhere along the way I lost sight of that. I let work become more important. Let meetings and deals and business problems crowd out the time I should have been spending with you. But that little girl also told me something else. She said it is never too late to start over. As long as you are still breathing, you can try again. So that is what I want to do. Want to try again. I want to be the dad you deserve, not the absent one who only shows up when it is convenient. The real kind of dad, the kind who shows up even when it is hard, even when work is crazy, even when there are a million other things demanding my attention. Because you are more important than all of those things combined. Do you mean it? The voice was so small now. Oh, vulnerable, because you have said stuff like this before. After you missed my school play last year, you said you would do better, but then you missed my soccer game and my science fair and my birthday. I know, he said, and his heart was breaking. I know I have said it before and not followed through, and I understand if you do not believe me, have given you no reason to trust me, but I am asking you to give me one more chance. Just one. Let me prove to you that I can be better, that I can be the dad you need. How? She asked. How are you going to be different this time? What is going to change everything? He said firmly. I am going to change everything starting right now. First, I want to tell you why I really started my company. The real story, not the business version, but the true version. When my daddy died, we lost so much more than just him. We lost his whole side of the family because it was too hard to stay connected. I used to lie in bed at night and wish I could just see my cousins' faces, talk to my uncle about the stuff my dad used to tell me about, stay close to the people who knew my father. But we could not, and it hurt so much so. When I grew up, I wanted to make sure no other kid had to feel that way. I wanted to create something that would let families stay together no matter how far apart they were. That was the dream. That was what mattered. But I got so caught up in the business side of things that I forgot about the heart of Ivy. Forgot that the whole point was connection, was family, was love. And the most horrible irony is that while I was building something to help other families stay together, I was destroying my own family. His daughter was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You know, Mama and I use your company's app to video call Grandma every week, right? We talk to her in Texas, and she gets to see my homework and tell me stories. Your company helps us stay close to her, even though she is far away." He stopped walking completely. The same thing the little girl had said. The same exact thing. That is what the little girl told me today. She said her family uses our platform to talk to her grandma in the Philippines. And I realized that even though I had lost my way, even though I had forgotten the mission, the company was still doing what I originally wanted it to do. It was still helping families stay connected. So maybe I did not completely fail. Maybe I just need to remember what really matters. Yeah, his daughter said maybe, but Papa, she still called him that sometimes. When she forgot to be mad at him. It does not matter how many other families your company helps if you cannot even help your own family stay together. And she was right, absolutely right, with the kind of clarity that kids have before the world teaches them to complicate things. You are completely right, he said, and that is what I want to fix, not the company, not the business problems, but us, our family, you and me. That is what matters most. So, here is what I'm going to do starting tomorrow. I'm making some big changes. I'm going to talk to the board and tell them that I need to step back from some of my responsibilities. I am going to hire people to handle the day-to-day stuff, so I can focus on what the company should really be about, and more importantly, so I can focus on you. I want to have dinner with you twice a week. I want to come to your soccer games. I want to help with your homework. I want to be there for the big stuff and the small stuff. I want to be a real dad again. What if the board says no? What if they fire you? Then they fire me, he said, and he meant it. If I have to choose between the company and you, I choose you. Every single time. I should have been choosing you all along, but what about money? Mama says you have been worried about money lately. We will figure it out. Money matters, but it is not the most important thing. You are the most important thing. If I have to get a different job or downsize or whatever, then that is what I will do, because I would rather have less money and more time with you than all the success in the world without you. His daughter was quiet. Again, he could hear her sniffling, a little like she might be crying. Pop, she said, finally. Yeah, sweetheart. Want to believe you, I really do. But I'm scared that you will say all this stuff, and then nothing will change. Scared that you will go back to work tomorrow and forget all about this conversation. Scared that I will let myself hope, and then you will let me down again. That is fair, he said gently. You have every right to be scared. I have let you down so many times, but I'm asking you to trust me one more time, and if I mess up, if I start falling back into old patterns, I want you to call me out on it. Do not let me forget. Remind me why I started. Remind me what matters. Can you do that? I guess, she said, but Papa, you have to promise me something, anything. Promise me that even if work gets crazy again, you will still show up, even if it is just for a little while. Even if you can only stay for half of my soccer game or whatever, just show up. Do not completely disappear again. I promise. He said, I will show up even if I can only be there for 5 minutes. I will be there. You at my word? Okay, she said, and he could hear a tiny bit of hope creeping into her voice. Okay, then one more chance. But this is it, Papa. This is the last one. I understand, he said, and I will not waste. I love you, sweetheart, more than you will ever know. I love you too, she said quietly. Even when I'm mad at you, I still love you. Because what makes it hurt so much when you are not there? I know, he said, and I'm going to fix. I promise you, I'm going to fix it. They talked for a few more minutes about small things here. Homework, her friends at school, the new book she was reading, normal, everyday things that he had missed so much. When they finally hung up, he stood there in the park holding his phone and feeling like he could breathe properly for the first time in months. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful, and he realized that he could not remember the last time he had actually stopped to notice a sunset, could not remember the last time he had paid attention to anything that was not related to work, that was going to change. All of it was going to change. The little girl had been right. It was not too late to start over. It was not too late to remember why he started walking in the first place, and now he knew exactly what he needed to do. The next morning he walked into the office at 7:30, much later than his usual 5 a.m. arrival. His assistant looked shocked when she saw him come through the glass doors. She had been calling him all afternoon yesterday, and he had ignored every single one. Serge started rushing over with her tablet. The board has been trying to reach you. They want to meet this morning to discuss the restructuring plan. Andy No, he interrupted gently. Can you schedule a meeting with them for 10? I need to do something first. She blinked in surprise, but nodded, of course. Is everything all right? Everything is about to be said, and for the first time in months, he actually believed. I went to his office and closed the door, sat down at his desk, and opened his laptop. But instead of checking emails or reviewing reports, like he normally would, he opened a blank document and started writing. Not a business plan, not a presentation, just thoughts, memories, everything that little girl had reminded him about yesterday. Why had he started this company? What had been the original vision before investors and board members and quarterly earnings had complicated everything? He wrote for an hour straight, barely stopping to think, just letting it all pour out: the pain of losing his father, the frustration of losing touch with family, the dream of creating something that would help other people avoid that pain, the excitement of those early days when it was just him and two friends in a garage, when they stayed up all night coding and eating pizza and believing they could change the world, when the mission had been crystal clear somewhere along the way. The company had stopped being about the mission and started being about the metrics, about user growth and revenue streams in market positioning. All important things, sure, but not the heart of it, not the reason any of them had started this journey in the first place. At 9:45, his assistant knocked on the door. The board is ready for you in the conference room. Thank you. He saved the document and grabbed the folder he had prepared. This meeting was not going to go the way anyone expected. The conference room was on the top floor, all glass walls and expensive furniture. The board members were already seated, 12 of them, all powerful people with impressive resumes and significant financial stakes in the company. They looked impatient. Several were checking their phones. Others were whispering to each other. When he walked in, the room went quiet. The chairman gestured to the empty seat at the head of the table. Thank you for finally joining us. His tone was cold. We have been trying to reach you since yesterday afternoon. Where were you? I was in the park, he said, simply talking to someone who helped me see things clearly. The board members exchanged glances. One woman rolled her eyes. We do not have time for cryptic answers. This company is in crisis. We need concrete solutions, and we need them now. You are absolutely right, he said, sitting down. This company is in crisis, but not for the reasons you think. I have spent the last 3 months trying to fix our numbers, trying to cut costs and increase revenue and make the shareholders happy, but I realized yesterday that we have been trying to solve the wrong problem. One of the older board members leaned forward. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that we have lost our way. We forgot why this company exists in the first place. We got so focused on growth and profits that we lost sight of our mission. He opened his folder and pulled out copies of what he had written that morning, passed them around the table. This is why I started this company, to help families stay connected, to make sure that distance does not mean losing the people you love. That was the dream. That was what mattered. And somehow we turned it into just another tech company chasing market share. The board members were reading his document now. Some looked confused, others skeptical. The chairman put the paper down and looked at him. This is very touching, but it does not change the fact that we are hemorrhaging money. Our subscribers are down 20% from last year. Competitors are eating our lunch. We need a business solution, not a philosophy lesson. What if the business solution is to remember the philosophy? He said. What if the reason we are failing is because we stopped doing what we are actually good at? We have been trying to compete with the big social media platforms, trying to add features that have nothing to do with our core mission. We turned our simple video calling platform into a bloated mess of features that nobody asked for, and in the process we lost the people who actually needed what we originally offered. One of the younger board members spoke up. What are you proposing? Exactly, I am proposing that we strip everything back to basics. He said, we Get rid of all the extra features, all the stuff we added to try to compete with companies that are not even in our real market. We focus exclusively on making the best family connection platform in the world. Simple, affordable, reliable, and instead of trying to maximize revenue from premium features, we make the basic service free for low-income families. We partner with schools and community organizations. We become the platform that helps families who need it most. The room erupted. Several board members started talking at once, of them sounding angry or incredulous. "Are you insane?" one man said loudly. "You want to give away our service for free? How exactly do we make money?" "We make money from businesses and from people who can afford premium features," he said calmly. "But we stopped trying to squeeze every penny out of struggling families. We remember that our job is to help people stay connected, not to maximize shareholder value at the expense of our mission." Yesterday, I met a little girl in the park. Her mother works 2 jobs just to make ends meet, and that little girl told me that her family uses our platform to stay connected with her grandmother, who lives overseas. She told me how much it means to them, how it helps her mother feel less homesick. I realized that we are actually succeeding at our original mission. Even though we lost sight of it, we are helping families with real struggles. And instead of celebrating that and doubling down on it, we have been trying to turn those families into revenue streams. "This is not sustainable," the chairman said, shaking his head. "You cannot run company on good intentions. The investors will never support this." "Then maybe we have the wrong investors," he said. He meant it. If our investors care more about short-term profits than about actually doing something meaningful, then we do not want their money. He looked around the table at all of them. "I know this sounds radical. I know it goes against everything we have been doing for the past 5 years. But I am telling you that this is the only way forward. Not just for the company, but for me. Personally, I have spent the last decade sacrificing everything that matters for this company. My marriage failed, my relationship with my daughter nearly died, all because I convinced myself that building a successful business was more important than being present in my own life. And I am done with that. I am done choosing metrics over meaning. If you want to fire me, then fire me. But if you want to save this company, then you need to trust me on this. We go back to basics. We remember why we started. We build something that actually matters." The room was silent now. Every person at the table was watching him. Some looked angry, some looked thoughtful. The chairman leaned back in his chair. "You have changed. Something happened to you yesterday." "Yes," he said. "Simply, I woke up." A woman at the end of the table spoke up. She was one of the original investors, someone who had been with them since the early days. "I remember when you first pitched this company to Mesh," said quietly. "You were so passionate, so clear about what you wanted to build. You talked about your father and about family and about connection. And I invested because I believed in that vision. But you were right. We lost that somewhere along the way." She looked around at the other board members. "Maybe he has a point. Maybe we need to remember what we are actually trying to do here. Make connections, help families. That was always the goal. The numbers are just a way to measure if we are succeeding, but they should not be the goal itself." One by one, other board members started nodding. Not all of them. Some still looked skeptical, but enough of them were listening. The chairman sighed. "This is going to be a hard sell to the investors. I will sell it to them myself," he said. "Give me 3 months. Let me prove that this approach can work. Let me show them that doing the right thing can also be good business. And if it does not work, if the numbers do not improve, then you can vote me out and bring in someone who will do things your way, but give me this chance, please." The chairman looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. 3 months. But you need to show measurable improvement. Not just in feel-good stories, but in actual business metrics, user retention, engagements. Some kind of growth, even if it is not in revenue. "Yeah, can you do that?" "I can do that," He said because when you actually solve real problems for real people, they stick around, they tell their friends. They become loyal users. That is how you build something sustainable, not by chasing trends, but by being genuinely useful. The but kicks in. Meeting went for another hour. They discussed specifics, what features to cut, what partnerships to pursue, how to structure the free tier for low-income families. It was the most productive meeting he had had in months, because everyone was finally talking about the mission instead of just the money. When it ended, he went back to his office and immediately called his daughter. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, Papa." "Hey, sweetheart, I just wanted to let you know that I am keeping my promise. I talked to the board this morning, and I am making big changes, not just at work, but in how I do things. I am going to be home for dinner tonight, and tomorrow I want to come watch your soccer practice, if that is okay." "Really?" She sounded surprised but happy. "You mean I've said I am done putting work first. You are my priority. Now the company will be fine, or it will not be. Either way, you matter more." There was a pause, then she said, "Papa, there is a game on Saturday, not just practice, but an actual game. Will you come? I will be there." He promised, front row, cheering louder than anyone else. "I might even embarrass you." She giggled. "That is okay. You can embarrass me. Do not care. I just want you there." The rest of the day was a whirlwind. Met with his management team and explained the new direction. Some of them were excited, some were worried, but all of them could see that he was different, that something fundamental had shifted. He delegated tasks that he normally would have insisted on doing himself. He set boundaries around his time. He blocked off his calendar for dinner every single night, and for the first time in years, he left the office at 5:30, drove home while it was still light outside. His daughter was at his ex-wife's house. That was part of the custody arrangement, but he had called ahead and asked if he could come over for dinner. His ex-wife had been suspicious at first, but she had agreed. When he arrived, his daughter ran to the door, threw her arms around him in a hug that made his chest tight. "You came," she said. "You really came. I told you I would," he said, "and I'm going to keep telling you that until you believe me." Every single time they had dinner together, all three of them, it was awkward. At first, his ex-wife kept looking at him like she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. But as the evening went on and he stayed present, asking questions, listening to stories, helping clean up, not checking his phone even once, he could see her start to relax a little. After dinner, his daughter showed him her homework, told him about her friends at school, showed him a drawing she had made, all the little everyday things he had missed so much. When it was time to leave, she hugged him again. Saturdays, she reminded him. "You promised Saturday." He confirmed, "I will be there." As he drove home that night, he thought about the little girl in the park. He wished he could thank her, tell her that her words had changed everything, that she had saved him in a way he did not even know her name. But he hoped that somehow, somewhere, she knew that she had made a difference, that her father's words, written in a child's handwriting in a worn notebook, had given a broken man the courage to start over, to remember why he started walking in the first place, and to finally start walking in the right direction. 6 months later, he found himself back in that same park. It was a Saturday afternoon, and he had just finished watching his daughter's soccer team win their championship game. She had scored 2 goals, and the pride he felt watching her was bigger than any business achievement he had ever experienced. His ex-wife had been there too. They were not back together, probably never would be, but they were friendly now, co-parenting in a way that actually worked. She had even smiled at him after the game and said, I'm proud of you, not just for showing up today, but for showing up every time." Those words meant more to him than any award or recognition ever had. His daughter was at a team celebration with her friends now. He had a few hours before he needed to pick her up, so he had driven to the park, looking for someone. The bench was still there. The same weathered wood where he had sat 6 months ago and cried, where everything had changed. He sat down and looked around it. was busier today than it had been that afternoon. Families were out enjoying the nice weather. Kids were playing on the playground. Dogs were running around chasing balls. Normal, happy Saturday afternoon things. He wondered if he would see her, the little girl who had changed his life without even knowing it. Had come back to this park a dozen times over the past 6 months, always hoping, but he had never seen her again. Still, he kept trying. The company had changed dramatically. They had stripped away all the unnecessary features, gone back to basics, created a simple, reliable platform focused entirely on helping families connect, and they had launched a program offering free service to low-income families, partnered with schools and community centers and immigrant support organizations. The first month, the numbers had dropped even further. Some investors pulled out. The board was nervous, but he had stayed the course, trusted the vision, remembered why he started, and slowly things had turned around. User engagement went up. People were spending more time on the platform, actually using it for meaningful conversations instead of just scrolling mindlessly. Word spread. Families started telling other families. The press picked up on what they were doing. Several articles featured stories of immigrant families staying connected across continents, of grandparents getting to watch their grandchildren grow up despite living thousands of miles away, of military families maintaining bonds during long deployments. The platform was being used exactly the way he had always dreamed it would be. And the numbers followed. Not explosive growth, but steady, sustainable growth, the kind that came from actually solving real problems for real people. 3 weeks ago, the board had voted unanimously to extend his contract to fully support the new direction. Even the skeptical investors had come around when they saw the results, but more importantly than any of that, he was a different person now. Had dinner with his daughter 3 times a week. Never missed it. Never let work be an excuse. He went to every soccer game, every school event. He helped with homework and listened to stories about her friends and was present, actually present, not just physically there, but mentally and emotionally engaged. He had started seeing a therapist, working through the workaholism and the fear and all the stuff that had driven him to sacrifice his family for his career. It was hard work, confronting all of that, but it was necessary. His relationship with his daughter had transformed. She trusted him again, smiled when she saw him, ran to hug him instead of keeping her distance. That trust had been hard to earn back, had required consistency and follow-through, and showing up even when it was inconvenient. But it was worth every bit of effort. He pulled out his phone and looked at his background photo. It was from 2 weeks ago, him and his daughter at her school science fair, both of them grinning at the cameras. He had won 2nd place for her project on renewable energy, and he had been there to see it. Oh, celebrate with her, be the dad she deserved. A shadow fell across the bench. He looked up. There she was, the little girl wearing the same too big backpacker, hair in those crooked pigtails. She was bigger than he remembered kids grow so fast at that age, but it was definitely her. Those same bright, curious eyes. "You are back," she said matter-of-factly, like it had been days instead of months. "I am back," he confirmed. "I have been hoping to see you again. I wanted to thank you for what." She tilted her head. "For what you told me that day about your father, about remembering why you started. You changed my whole life." With those words, the girl smiled. "Did you get back up? Did you remember why you started walking?" "I did," he said. "Everything is different now, better. I fixed things with my daughter. I changed my company to focus on what really matters. I am actually helping families now the way I always wanted to." "That is good," she said. "I am glad Papa would be happy to know his words helped someone." She sat down on the bench beside him, just like she had 6 months ago. "My mama got a promotion," she said. "She only has to work one job now. We have more time together. And I joined the soccer team at school. I am not very good yet, but it is fun." "That is wonderful," he said, genuinely happy for her. "You know your family uses my company's platform, right, to talk to your grandmother?" "Yes." Nodded. "We talked to Grandma this morning. She got to see my new soccer medal, Mama. Says the service is free now for people like us. That it used to cost money, but now it does notice. That because of you. Partly, he admitted, we decided that helping families stay connected was more important than making as much money as possible. We made it free for families who need it most. Families like yours. The girl looked at him seriously. That is a really good thing you did. My mama cries sometimes when we video call Grandma happy crying because she misses home so much, and seeing Grandma's face makes it better. Now, she can call anytime she wants. She does not have to worry about it costing too much. Thank you for that. You are welcome, he said, his throat tight. But I should be thanking you. If you had not talked to me that day, I do not know where I would be right now. Probably still sitting on this bench crying. She giggled at that. Maybe. But Papa always said everyone needs help sometimes, even grown-ups, even important people. Nobody can do everything alone. Your father was a very wise man. Wish I could have met him. Me too, she said quietly, but his words are still helping people, even though he is gone. That makes me feel good, like he is still here in a way. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the families in the park. Father pushing his daughter on a swing. Mother teaching her son how to fly a kite. An older couple walking hand in hand. Simple moments of connection. The stuff that actually mattered. You know what is funny? The girl said, "What is that? That day I talked to you, I was having a bad day to my teacher and gotten mad at me for not finishing my homework, and I felt really sad, but then I saw you crying and I wanted to help, and helping you made me feel better, so maybe we helped each other. Maybe we did." He agreed. Sometimes life works out that way. Do you still have that notebook? He asked. The one with your father's words. Yeah, she pulled it out of her backpack. The same worn notebook with the stickers on the cover. She opened it to the page she had shown him before. Being successful is not about never falling down. It is about getting back up and remembering why you started walking in the first place. He read it again. Let those words sink in again. Would you mind if I took a picture of that? He asked. I want to keep it with me to remind me when things get hard. Sure. She held the notebook up for him. He took a photo with his phone, set it as a reminder that would pop up every morning. A daily reminder of what mattered. After he took the photo, the girl started to stand up. I should go. Mama will be here soon, and we are going to the library today. I like the library. Before you go, he said, can I ask you something? Okay. What is your name? I realized I never asked you that day, and I've been calling you the little girl in my head for 6 months now. She giggled again. That is silly. My name is Lily, he repeated. That is a beautiful name. I am Robert. It is nice to officially meet you, Lily. You too, Mr. Robert, she said. She started to walk away, then turned back. Mr. Robert. Yak. Getting back up. Okay. Even when things get hard. That is what Papa would want, and come back to this park sometimes. Maybe I will see you again. I will, he promised, and thank you, Lily, for everything. She waved and skipped off toward the parking lot where her mother was waiting, the same tired-looking woman, but she seemed less tired now, or relaxed. She waved at him politely, perhaps remembering him from before. He waved back, watched them get in their car and drive away. Then he sat there for a while longer, thinking about the strange way life works. How a chance encounter with a child in a park had saved him. How the wisdom of a man he had never met, written in a child's handwriting, had given him the courage to change everything. How sometimes the most important lessons come from the most unexpected places. His phone buzzed. A text from his daughter. Are you coming to get me soon? We are done with the party, and I want to tell you all about it. Smiled and typed back, on my way. Now cannot wait to hear everything. He stood up from the bench, took one last look around the park. This place would always be special to him. The place where he had hit bottom, and the place where he had found his way back. Upas. He walked to his car. He thought about everything that had changed. The company was smaller now, but healthier, more focused, actually making a difference in people's lives. His relationship with his daughter was strong, built on trust and presence and showing up. He was not perfect, still made mistakes, still Had hard days, but he knew now what mattered, knew how to prioritize new. That success was not about never falling down. It was about getting back up and remembering why you started walking in the first place. He had started walking because he wanted to help families stay connected. And now he was doing that, both through his company and in his own life. He was connected to his daughter in a way he had not been in years, was building something meaningful instead of just chasing growth, was living a life that aligned with his values instead of constantly compromising them. And it all started with a little girl named Lily who had sat down on a bench next to a crying stranger and shared her father's wisdom without even knowing how much he needed to hear it. As he drove to pick up his daughter, he felt grateful not for the success or the money or the recognition, but for the second chance, for the opportunity to get it right, for the reminder that it is never too late to start over. As long as you are still breathing, you can try again. You can remember why you started. You can get back up when everyone thinks you cannot, and you can choose what really matters. Every single day you get to make that choice. He had been making the right choice for 6 months now, and he planned to keep making it for his daughter, for himself, for all the families his company was helping, for Lily and her mother and everyone else who needed connection. Because at the end of the day, that was what life was about, not achievements or accolades or bank accounts, but connection, love, showing up for the people who matter. Being present, being real, being human. He pulled up to the school where his daughter was waiting. She saw his car, and her whole face lit up. She ran over and jumped in, talking a mile a minute about the party and their friends and everything that had happened, and he listened, really listened, not thinking about work or checking his phone or planning his next move, just being there, present, connected. The way a father should be, the way he planned to be for the rest of his life. Because a little girl in a park had reminded him that this was what mattered. This right here, this moment, this connection, this love, everything else was just noise. And he was done letting the noise drown out what was real. He was done falling down. He had gotten back up, and he remembered exactly why he started walking. He was walking for this, for her, for family, for connection, for love, and he would keep walking in that direction, no matter what, for as long as he lived.